all get told now that we're starting to record. So you're all very welcome to the fourth session with our now friend, Colm Croffy from IFA, who is coming along to inform us about I suppose hosting community events and the various topics that have been covered over the past few weeks. And I know the feedback that we're getting from a lot of the groups that we're talking to is incredibly positive, Colm, and groups have really benefited from the one-to-one aspect of it as well. So thank you very much for all of your hard work. We would ask that everybody sign in to the chat, just your name and the group, just so we have a record for the funders, because, you know, we all live in this bubble where we have to produce paperwork, and I'm just looking at Margaret Doherty there, to whom I think I owe some paperwork. So yeah, it's all part of the one circle. But right, look, we'll get handed over to Colm. I'm going to take a couple of screenshots as we go, and we'll get started. So Colm, it's all yours.
Great. Okay, can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Good. Okay. Pleasure being back here again, folks. This is the last 4 sessions, and I really enjoyed working with you all. And I've sculpted a bit of my commentary today based on the one-to-one mentorings that I've had, both in this project and a few others, because I think whether one is baking a cake in COVID or before COVID or after COVID, there are still some rudiments that will remain the same. So that's my starting premise. I'm going to try sharing my screen with you. Is that working, John?
No.
No. Okay, so I've done something wrong here. Okay, let me just see what I've done wrong. So remind me again.
So down at the bottom, screen share and select.
Yeah.
So you're in as a co-host, and I'm going to add Eamon as a co-host.
Are you sure I'm a co-host, John? Because I don't see that prompt.
Oh, let me make sure that you are. Yeah, no, you are up as co-host. So
okay.
You should be, I can make you the host if need be.
It's just a share screen. I have it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mea culpa. Sorry, folks. It's just every now and again. The more zoomier I get, the more lost it can become. So, and I want to do it from this slide. Okay. So I'm going to look at just some programming prompts. Is that good, John? Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Just new ways of looking at how we deliver the stuff that we're doing, okay, and how that can impact better our communities. So I've just divided the chat up into 4: people, plant, process, and production, because I think realistically, if 60% of our effort was on people, 20% on plant, and 10 on process, and 10 on production, we'd be better off. But I'm finding that most of us spend 60% on process, 10% of production, and 10% in plant, and 5% of people. And that's causing trouble. That's causing long-term problems in our sector. So there's been lots written, lots up online on how to get volunteers to give more. I'm not going to do a lot of that, but I've melanged some wonderful top tips from the Carmichael Centre in Dublin and the Volunteer Ireland programme and my Scandinavian friends. And what they do in Scandinavia is, instead of asking you to honour the volunteer code, is to stand back take some coffee break and just go through this. I'm going to send you a list of 100 things that you should be doing as best practice with volunteers in a community event setting. And with your leadership team, just with the 1 to 100, shout them out and just tick what we're actually doing. Yeah. So if we're evaluating volunteer involvement on an ongoing basis, just tick that. Don't ask why we're doing it or how we're doing it, just tick it. If we're not doing that, put a circle around it. And then at the end of the process, count the scribbles. Anyone that gets 55 or more ticks is on a pass. Anyone that's getting 65 or more is on a merit. Anyone with 75 more is a distinction. 85 is pure first-class organizational minding of volunteers. And the reason why I think this is important is when I ask people, what's your most important thing within the event, they'll tell me it's the volunteers. I go, great, show me your budget. And I go, how much are you investing in your volunteers? They go, oh, no, we can't spend any money on volunteers because we don't pay them. And I go, well, no, I'm not asking you to pay them, but a little bit of resource is going to be needed here to do some of these other things correctly. I was asked in a different activity, what were the ones that stood out the most for me? And to me, highlighting the impact that your volunteer contribution is having to your community facility, your venue, your voluntary charity is, to me, the most important. So many of us don't do this. In the local press, in the local media, informing people of the excellent work and the range and depth of volunteers that you have. We tend not to do this because we're shy, we're embarrassed, yada, yada, we don't have time, whatever it is. I mentioned this in the press and media briefing. The voluntary hours, count it all up. And if you want to, place the minimum living wage against those hours and look at how much your volunteers are saving for your community or that organization. That's a huge public relations exercise. I walk into some venues, I walk into some community organizations, and there's never any photographs of volunteers around their foyer. Lots with government ministers, lots with funders, lots with sponsors. Ditto, you go to their Facebook pages or website pages, and it's all the usual chain gang that's in the front row and center, but the volunteers are 15 pages out of the very back if you scroll down enough. Not the place to have them. If they're that key to us, we need to put them front and center. I think this is a good time to consult with key stakeholder type volunteers within our organizations. So maybe not between now and Christmas, but certainly that those lazy slumbering days of January where we might not be as free as we are now would be a good time to solicit volunteers' views via SurveyMonkey or something like that. And this is something we do rather well in Ireland if we are bereaved. You'll get the flowers if we're dead, but we're not too good at shipping the flowers if I'm ill or my partner is ill or and those little milestones are important to record from a volunteer point of view. Where is your photograph right now on your Facebook page or website that has this message on it, that has a bunch of you from season 2019 when you weren't social distance, or season 20 when you were social distance, packing the bags, going through the coats, parking the cars, just giving a big high five with a call to what you're trying to do for season 2020. Where is that shot? I don't know where it is. And I can tell you from an Irish perspective, these shots are minimal in our lexicon of material that we post up, because the mantra is our volunteers are important to us when paid or not. This is a fun one. This is a recruitment photograph. Again, it comes from West Cork. I'm in love a lot of the time with the people of Schull and West Cork. I just think they're very innovative and they really, really work hard. They're as peripheral and as remote as Donegal. But they had a street artist in for a couple of days at the festival, and there's just two volunteers goofing around with a piece of pavement, a sidewalk art. We all have sidewalks. We don't all have sidewalk artists, but we do have creative people in our communities. And that's one volunteer pretending to throw another down a cinematic well. And that's the photograph that they use for their festival volunteer program page. The Toronto International Film Festival has won a number of awards down through the years for the way they have a volunteer development program in place for a community event. And I would ask you to have a look there. What I like about their photography in the volunteer space is that it is redolent of all the different types of people you meet in their community. So they're not all white, male, Caucasian, middle-aged people. Yeah, the full smorgasbord of Toronto City is available to you when you look at their visuals. And if your community is trying to reach out to newer faces, newer voices, newer people within it, your photography needs to reflect that, especially in the volunteering page. That's a little YouTube clip that the Toronto people put up. It's well worth looking at. I'm not going to show it now. Watch it all the time. The people at Westival in Mayo and Westport have a nice little volunteer centre on their Facebook page with an apply here button on it. So there's no ring up, look for an email. It's just badoom, apply here. And that's just literally an expression of interest. I'd like to be a volunteer. Then you get the little form and the tick boxing and the process starts. Yeah. So that's people in a real rushed nutshell. I think most of our problems are caused in events by people, whether they're volunteers, whether they're programmers, producers, or audience. And how we handle them is going to really be a key determiner of our success. So I want to quickly look at plant. And in this context, I mean all the equipment and stuff that you use to put on an event in your community hall, in your theatre, in your health centre, in your school, in your assembly hall, in your village green, wherever the event we think might be taking place in the next time we do it. And the early part of the year is a very good time to try and just get some hard evidence or hard research done on the type of equipment needs that you have on an annual basis, the prices, and who stores them or who supplies them in your locality. So insofar as we can, and I know season 2021 is not going to be a full COVID season and not a season 2019 either, I get that. But still, what are our current needs? What will our plan needs for projectors, for PA, for lighting, for chairs, for water coolers be? So, and what's on our needs list every year that if we had a grant or if we could get a capital grant, we could apply to purchase that would stop us having to lease it every year. So have a think about what's we have to pay for on a rental every year and what we can actually maybe purchase if we had money, which is the Santa list. Who stocks what we need? When is this available? How long of a lead-in time do they need? And remember, if you've had relationships with suppliers in 2019, they may not be in business for 2021. They may be doing business under different terms. So finding out that your sound rigger and your sound technician can't come within 3 days of a call like you used to for 2019, 4 days before you're going to have the fetched goal is not a good place to be. Look at discounting. A lot of organizations with community facilities only price per event. They don't say to the sound engineer, look, we're going to have 16 events in here from Paddy's Day right through to Christmas. Can you give us a price for 16 events with that rig and those lights and you yourself in attendance to set up and to monitor the sound desk? And then if you're doing that locally, who else in the community might be using stuff that you could actually put in a group purchase or a group scheme together? Watch the small print. I think a lot of the small print is going to change in the next season, especially with self-indemnity. I'm hearing a lot about this. So I'm hiring in a sound system, I'm hiring in a lighting system, and it's 200 cheaper than the guy that I used to get it from before. But the small print says now I am responsible. My insurance is covering that. There's no third-party liability to me. Very, very significant that. And again, if it's user-operated only equipment or the people in the building or the people at your community can use it, that does change price and does change contract terms. So bunting, signage, printing is the biggest one. Sound, stage lighting, all that. Storage and access. If we buy this stuff, where are we going to store it? If we rent it, and if we're going to rent it for the community at Falcara for the whole month, so that the rugby club, the GA club, the hurling club, and the RNLI can use it all for this busy month of August where we've all got 15 events on, what bell container might we put it in? So event to event is easy, but community collaboration is a bit trickier because lots of people with golf courses and rugby clubs and GA houses who do their own thing and then a supporter or a sponsor who only deals with them. And I'm just saying, have those conversations in January rather than when you find out that somebody is doing a disco in the GA clubhouse for a third of the cost of putting lights and PA into yours. Try, get both deals. So looking a little at event process or event management, and I think this is something, again, it was interesting when we went through the media and public relations stuff, how all of this was being hung around the same person who's doing everything else. And I suspect, for what it's worth, from my chats since September in this space, that more and more festival directors exist, or festival coordinators or festival managers, but their badge doesn't say that. And I think you need the leadership of your tribe or the management committee or the board of directors to understand a bit more how the event process needs to occur to create a production environment. And I'm going to show you some workarounds for that. And this is quite condensed, unfortunately, because we have the limited time that we have. But I mean, that's, there are 4-year degree courses for this, deciding themes, doing locations, agreeing on locations, advertising and getting sponsors, absolutely. However, for a more simplified run of the process, I'd like to invite people to use the concept of an event scheduler. And the event scheduler is very, very simple in that it's just an Excel sheet with typically, and each event is slightly different in that it may have other boxes, but here's what would be on the main left-hand side column for most organizations and events that I would suspect would be running. So a column and a box across the top line for acts, performers, and bookings, for instance. Then third-party contractors, then finance, budgeting, and fundraising, a box and a line of action for program, a line of action for marketing, separate than PR. Marketing we're paying for, public relations we're spinning. Production, volunteers, and perhaps other. And the next thing that has to happen on the scheduler is you need to put time-specific boxes on it. So what happens under audience and artist 12 months out? What typically happens? 9 months out, what should happen? 6 months out, what should happen? 3 months, and then every fortnight in until maybe 3 weeks before the festival. And those of us who are on committees or those of us who can recall arriving into the organization as a volunteer to do something, all remember that moment when we got the big folder of all the notes of the previous occupant, the previous committee member who did the street music or who did the sponsorship, and said, here you are, Jim, you'll find it all in that. Doesn't happen in Ireland in festival and community events. It happens in sport to some degree, but not in our space. But if we do this cleverly, you have a updated file that shows any newcomer to the team exactly what tasks have to happen and how they're broken down in advance of the event. Now, the Canadians and the New Zealanders were first to this system, and they used to do big, messy folders. But I have a secret to share with you. Mr. Google has this all done for us. Google Docs shared, yeah? So now you should call him Jimmy doesn't do email, and Noreen is very blind. And yeah, there's all those reasons why you can't use this space. And for those people who can't play in it, you're going to have to find a workaround, maybe a printout of it for them to take to the meeting, or to print out and post it to them in advance of the meeting. But for people who are going to become new committee members, they're not going to work under the old regime of minutes, meeting, matters arising every Tuesday night, 8:30 in the community centre. That's not going to be effective. COVID has taught us something very, very significant, that we will be more precious with our time. So use the Google Share documents and use a simple Excel sheet is all I'm saying. But what it means is that you can update it in real time. As changes are made to it, everybody else can see them. If you can't make the meeting, you can type in under your action items what it is that you've achieved in that space. You can see how others that might link into you have done their homework, and you can add a commentary through the What's Up mechanism or through whatever way the committee or team is doing it that allows activity to progress, which is most important. So here's what a typical event scheduler should look like. So let's say, for instance, Axe, John Murphy on our team, there's his mobile number. He, for his sins, is now the key person responsible for all our acts that we'll be playing at our community event. And 10 weeks out, we've agreed on our pre-production planner that he should finalize all the public relations shots of all the players and all the social media clips of everyone who's playing a fiddle, dancing a stacking orna, or doing a tubular bells number. Yeah. And if he has all those clips and shots he should be sending them to the person who's doing marketing or public relations. 8 weeks out, he's to get the riders, that's the green M&Ms and blue M&Ms for the room, the tech spec for the stage and lights. 6 weeks, he needs to make contact with the radio program producers and get some of the music to them. 4 weeks, the airport pickups and schedules are to a port or wherever people are going to come from. So the beauty of this process is if John Murphy gets ill, God forbid, or gets transferred to an oil rig in the Orkneys, the person who's going to take over from John can just follow up where he left off and also see what the key objectives were to be achieved in his area within those timelines, because the group, before we set out to produce the event, has agreed the event scheduler with all the players who are taking on individual responsibility. So in terms of mapping where you are in the first week of May or the last week of August, it is a very clean, crisp and simple low-cost mechanism for showing you how much progress has been made. And critically, for those who will all roll their eyes up to heaven and go, Colm, there's no way this would work with our team because we have people who refuse to type and we have people who turn up to the meeting, will take 45 minutes of the airspace but do nothing. This system is ideal at removing that sort of bagashta. Yeah? And if you're still having trouble with meetings and problems with output from meetings, take a tip from a British monarch who in 1820 odd rose to the throne. This is the famine queen I'm talking about, Madame Victoria. Her first Privy Council meeting lasted 6 days, and 19 Privy Councillors turned up to one of her castles and proceeded to empty her cellar and eat and drink her out of house and home. And she asked the master of the cavalry command to her, what should she do? And he said that if she changed the format of the meeting, decisions would be come to over the bills presented from Parliament for the sovereign to sign. So she got them all to stand up. And to this day, all meetings of Privy Council in the United Kingdom are held standing up. So there's very little time for long-winded discussion, which isn't bad. So there's the usual sort of stuff that are positions that you would need to fill within a team for an event scheduler to typically work. A chairperson, a secretary, the treasurer, finance officer, PRO, communications officer. Depending on the complexity of what you're trying to run, an event management team is important which would have at the head of the event controller, because you're not going to call a committee meeting of 12 to stand down the event, or in the case of Michael D passing away, and we've got some state mourning days, to actually postpone the event. That's not going to be done with a committee meeting. There has to be a tight event control team who would make that decision and communicate it effectively. For people to hold officer positions, I would suggest a couple, if they had 4 of those 9 attributes, would be loads. They won't have them all. The capability of liaising with others, some experience of the event, and some skill set would be the top 3. And this is the bit that we, in my humble opinion, we have issues with. We're not bad planners in Ireland. We're very good organisers. We have a weak spot for staffing and resourcing, because we only see staffing and resourcing if you've got paid people about the place. And I meet festival community volunteers on a regular basis. Haven't met as many this year as I'd like to, but you notice the lifers have to take different positions, and the closer they get to chair or president is their way of saying goodbye. In other words, that if they do 3 years as chair or president, they can then leave, as opposed to staying as secretary or coordinator or whatever other titular position might be there. I remember being at an American conference a couple of years ago, and a guy stood up, and I hadn't seen him in about 21 years, and he said that his ambition for his remaining years as chairman was to add the title emeritus to that role. So when you have people walking off in the distance because they're exhausted, it means we did not understand their resourcing support problem correctly. And that's something that we need to get a bit better doing. We're good at discussing. Sometimes we don't have the right discussions with the right people, and not every festival or event issue is just germane to the people who are going to produce it. We're rather good at coordinating within the team of people who have to produce the event, not as good at coordinating with the other stakeholder groups that may be in our community, which is bad in us. We can be good at budgeting. We have improved a lot of budgeting, and there's no point in doing the Dorina Allen budget, which says the treasurer and the co-treasurer or assistant finance officer bring it in and plop it up onto the committee table. Here's one we prepared earlier, and then everyone goes, absolutely, I propose, I second, and then we spend the rest of the year discussing money issues, because nobody knows how the money comes in or where it has to be spent. Yeah, with people coming back from holidays, hopefully, going, I saw this lovely thing with helium balloons for a festival launch in Tenerife, and wouldn't it be great if we could do that now in Greencastle? And somebody says, well, you know, the price of a helium balloon for a child's birthday has gone from 45 euros to 65. So no, we won't be doing 100 of those off the top of the church steeple. The bit that we're weak at, the weakest elements of this, is reporting. And by that I mean, when I typically meet a festival team, I'll say, okay, can I have a look at your report on last year's event? And they go, oh, you mean the AGM minutes? And I go, Jesus, no, not that, please. I don't want that stuff at all. No, that's just mutual congratulation and giving thanks and changing officers and spinning the bottles. The actual report that says, oh, you mean the report to Udros? No, 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 no. Oh, the one for Falcha? No, no. No, I'm not looking for a funder-specific report, because they tend to be, again, littered with success, whether they were a failure or not, because they're written for the audience in mind. I'm looking for the report that says to the committee that us 9 from this community agree that these 3 things were successful in last year's event that we ran. These 3 things, if we are to run them again, we need to look at elements of them. And these 3 things we will never, ever, ever do again, because they were a disaster. Signed, the committee. Because then there's been a shared learning exercise in what works, what doesn't work, and what can work. Because the amount of times I go into a room with 15 people and they've all got different interpretations of what went wrong for a festival 2 years ago, and you're going, folks, are you on the same team, pulling the same rope, or what? Show me the reports. They don't report to themselves. And you might say, oh, sure, Colm, there's no community group that reports to itself. Bing, the under-16 squad of the Gidoi Football Club at the AGM presented a detailed report on why they lost the matches, why they won the matches, how they were able to get around to the games, and whatever resourcing issues they had, and their prognosis to how they might see some of these players move to the under-18 competition. That's a report. That's a no-holds-barred analysis, critique of what worked well, what we have to improve on, which feeds into the review, which none of us do at all. And again, that feeds back into the outbound report that you might have in your annual report that you would use for stakeholder sponsors, funders, and indeed the community. So here's a very simple checklist of the sort of stuff that you ought to have done before one starts the event. There's the plug for membership. Budgets set and implemented. Dates and times, obviously. Funding applications, well done. Sponsorship campaign planned and executed. That's 16 to 20 weeks out, sponsorship if it's done properly. Insurance application, folks, do not leave it to 2 weeks to get an insurance application. That needs to be solved 9 to 8 weeks out. Sources of promotion, marketing, PR agreed and implemented, absolutely. The money generating and the ideas of fundraising, and the important part, creating the appetite and hype for the event you're going to produce. Pre-event meeting with appropriate bodies is very important, folks. Your safety statement is critical. The appointment of the safety officer. If it's a very elaborate event that has licensing issues, you may want to apply for or have to apply for a license. In-road notification, if that's significant to you. Street cleaning arrangements, if you're going to be outside. Donegal County Council have protocols and bylaws in place. Permits, they might be for road closures, they might be for car parks, they may also be for temporary bars. And again, with the court system clogged up, you need to allow more time to apply for those sort of things. And then if you're going to do street collections, bucket collections, that sort of stuff, you may need a superintendent or local permission pre and post. And obviously, if you're going to do vendoring or street trading on the streets, you will need permits or bylaws to assist you in that regard. That's just a mouthful about stewarding. There is a code of practice there. There is stewarding, 1 steward for every 100 in the event. That'll be about 3.5 stewards for most events we're running outside for most of next summer. I kid you not, because I don't think we will be formally moved out anywhere off the levels 1 to 7.5 by next summer. So we'll be living cheek by jowl with vaccine, mask and social distancing till at least Halloween of next year. Just litter pollution and green issues, sustainability are very important. And I'm going to signpost you at the end of this workshop to some organizations elsewhere who are doing this rather well, and to say, have a think about how you can morph your community event to this place. You won't get there overnight, in removing plastic and removing landfill and that sort of stuff. And then there's just some, I'm not going to do detailed health and safety, but just some issues around the event controller, the key emergency people, performers, traders, security stewards, media, health and safety, there's different levels of interaction with these organizations, with these groups, and that different people in your team need to have responsibility pre and during the day itself in making sure that the event is seamless. So when the event is over, technically, there's a number of questions I think that we need to ask ourselves. Do we achieve the festive or party atmosphere? None are minimum injuries. There may be some. Money made and bills paid, obviously. Are the residents and the stakeholders, which is the funders, the sponsors, the local authorities, the different people who have a vital stake in your event, are they content? Are they happy? And if they're not, what elements are they not happy about? Was the key messaging of our organization delivered? I find that community groups are so busy putting on the event and giving people a good time, they sometimes forget that the reason the event is on is to remind people why the organization exists in the first place. So branding is poor, PowerPoints are left blank on screens with an audience sitting waiting for a show to come on. Is that not a key spot to put in your budget figures from last year, or a key spot to put in an endorsement or a mission statement or our new vision statement? So to always remember that when you do go to the effort and energy dissipation of gathering an audience, to remind them of your key messages as well as the next act on stage will be. All ready for next year, and then more importantly, are we progressing in line with our goals or indeed our development plan that we have, that we're working to? So I want to focus now a little. That's how I think a lot of festival sites will look this summer. Note the recyclable furniture made from pallets. Note the open-sided tent where the wind can wheeze through. And note the absolute huge distance between pods of people at that outdoor venue. This is taken from a New Zealand community festival that happened 4 weeks after lockdown, according to the new New Zealand Code of Events and Outdoor Practice, New Zealand Code for Outdoor Events. So we're going to look like this. This is Mary from Dunlow in 2001, if it will happen at all. So the production process tends to be very flat and very stagnant for most of us. 8 out of 10 of us don't change the program at all. Typically, this is before 2020. There were about 30 new festivals of style, scale, and substance each year. But about 200 new events, which is small But what's important is the number of new festivals or new events that get to their 4th birthday is less than one in 5. It's about 18%. So there's a high failure rate here, and there's some reasons for that. I suspect it's a lot to do with what I was talking about in the earlier slides. So in asking people to rethink out of the bubble about, oh God, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't have 600 people to Christy Moore in the village hall, we can't have a fundraiser, fashion show, we can't. We have to move away from the we can't to what can we do creatively. And the first issue that we have to do creatively is to manage creativity calmly within our own teams, our own organizations. And I find in the last 8 years of doing this with groups, all suggestions have to be valued, external as well as internal. And this is a huge problem for festival teams or event teams, because they're all little mini De Valera's in that they only have to look into their own heart to know exactly what's best for their festival or their event. When in actual fact, if you want to creatively drive this thing on, you have to listen to other voices, and you have to listen and value those that are not doing 60 hours a month to help with the festival, as much as those who do 60 hours a month to help the festival. Brainstorming can only be encouraged with a strong leadership ethic that says, for this meeting, for this 2-hour Zoom meeting, we are not going to have any agenda item or any throwaway suggestion discounted. We need to be able to discourage possessiveness in that discussion, where if somebody says, oh, I think the country and western Sunday should be thrown up, people are tired of it. And because I run it, I get all sorts of bristles and go, well, what was wrong with the one I've done for the last 5 years, because it's mine, it's my work, and how dare you think that that's of no validity or of no use to our festival public. So that needs to be just stopped. In other words, thank you, Colm. You've done very well. This meeting is not to discuss whether or not you ran them successfully. It's to discuss what else could we do creatively with that Sunday. Trust has to be fostered by the newcomers and the new idea people to your organization. And the 2 lines that have to be removed from a brainstorming discussion in a community event setting are, we can't afford that, or we could never do that. What I tend to suggest to groups is to open up a jar, and if anyone says those 2 comments, they put a $5 into it. And that typically stops that sort of, oh, well, they tried that before, but it didn't work. Stop, please. We're having a brainstorming session here. If we have to rebuild the arc, all ideas are on the table, and nobody can have a monopoly on good ideas. So a creativity session, what does that look like as opposed to an event team meeting? Well, in my mind, going back to the British Sovereign, you need to change a little the dynamic of the interchange. So it could be a doodling session. We'll call it, that's fine if you can have a meeting in the center. No. So our next Zoom meeting is going to be about brainstorming for 2020 season. And our first 15 minutes are going to be, take a pen, take a page, and in the first 10 minutes, sketch out what success would look like for you with our community event in 2020. Just draw matchstick figures, it doesn't matter. Our brain has all gone to a different place for those 10 minutes. And then we have to put it up and show it to people. And then you start the process of discussion from there. If we were all together, I'd be saying a jar of crayons and lots of disused wallpaper, scribble on the back of it. Every idea is scribbled. Every idea has to be visualized. This is about getting the visual part of your brain to work as opposed to the Excel sheet part of our brain. Casual atmospherics are better. Again, lollipop sticks, matchsticks, cards, anything that, break it up with a little bit of food, or break it up with a little bit of chat or reminisce is important as well. Or even to ask people, draw us, okay, you've done your first drawing. Second drawing now is, give us a lovely memory you have of a family holiday in attendance at an event you didn't realize you were stumbling across. So it isn't that you got up and left the campsite very early that morning to get the bus to go to Pamplona to run with the bulls because the bull running festival was on. It's you were wandering around a French village and you stumbled across this community celebration. What was it that you remember that caused you to be so enthusiastic about it when you went home to the campsite and had a barbecue and a glass of beer at the end of the evening? Draw that now, and you have 5 minutes. That's a really great lever to hang a creative moment on in a brainstorming or creativity session. As we move out of the COVID world, team fun activities, going away to stuff will be useful. The go-see trips now are go on your Google, get us 5 visuals or 5 clips of a town the size of Gidoy, or the village the size of Gidoy, or Bloody Foreland, or wherever, Ballybuffet, and bring us back to our next Zoom meeting. The 5 visuals of activity that you think we should consider for season 2020 or 2021, so that you're relating back to the group why you think this might work. And you might never all budget it, or you might know whether you need 10 volunteers or 20 volunteers. It's the genesis of the idea and bouncing around your colleagues that will help the process. And finally, I think not enough of us look at our local audience or local catchment area to look for prompts that will give us a steer out of just providing the same food in a lazy menu, season in, season out, as opposed to being bold and ambitious. So The Dead Poets Society is one of my favorite movies. And I love that moment where Williams takes the kids into the classroom. He says, "You've been here for the last 3 years. You know everything about this classroom, don't you?" And they go, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Okay, stand up on the chairs." And all the students stand up on the chairs and they look around the classroom again and they realize, whoops, we actually are looking at a place we've lived in for 3 years completely differently. And you need to do that with your template of your venue, your building, your village green, your GEA pitch, your pier, your streetscape, your approach roads. Everything has to be seen from the point of view of creativity from a different angle. The creative sector of your community is often alone working in a studio. It's often alone hammering enamel or making gold jewelry or doing stuff that doesn't involve joining. And sometimes they can be slow or a little bit spooked by joining the event committee or the festival team. So you need to pull them in maybe for just 2 brainstorming sessions. The infrastructure of the hosting location of creative life. A rundown 1930s building that has had never a light bulb hung on it in 40 years is not an object of derision and dereliction with your creative hat on. It's not a street to be avoided. It's not a place to just park the cars and throw the barriers at because nothing ever happens there. That's the location exactly for the new Sonnet Lumiere display, the new murals, the new puppet show, the new projector show, the new sound and screening show. The capacity for us to reimagine streetscape, landscape, and our own locality in terms of streams, trees, is unreal. And if you're stuck for ideas, go and take a large mug of coffee and sit on the couch with Pinterest for a night and just look at some of the visual ideas that are sitting there. If you have a bridge in your town, put in bridge Pinterest, bridge painting, bridge decorating, for different summers, for different festivals, for different festival fiesta occasions, and look at what's sitting there and go, wow, could we do that with old socks? So all those negative, ugly ducklings that are lying around have to be turned into beautiful collaborations. And if it's not fun, your loyal and your new audiences will turn away. So for me, shop fronts that are not in use are ideal places for carrying new creative messages. The buildings, lights, particularly if your event is in the springtime or in the autumn time when the evenings are and shadows are long. For me, photography, food and cooking interaction and demonstrations has been the revelation of the last decade, in that people want to experience new things and get their hands covered in dough, cream, butter, churn, all that sort of stuff, wood chippings. But a lot of our events tend to be about the show-off side of it rather than the participatory side of it. And I suppose I first came across this phenomenon with the Irish Shows Association, where a show 15 years ago had 3,000 people hemmed up from the stage to Richie Kavanagh, and maybe 60 people in the arts and crafts tent looking at people doing traditional country relishes or jams or making chutneys or making bread. Now instead of around, the 3,000 are in looking at bread being baked out of a turf fire oven, and there's only 60 of a Richie Kavanagh in front of the stage where all the money has been spent. So what that is telling us is that people actually want to smell, see, and engage with whatever it is that's being demonstrated. Doodles to masterpieces and straw bales, the amount of stuff that is lying around our community that's in use at different times of the year that can be marshaled to create a unique calling card effect for our events is unreal. Ordinary things in extraordinary situations. The scarecrow. I mean, if you got every house to put out a scarecrow, if you got every farmer on the approach roads to Letterkenny to give you 3 straw bales or silage bales wrapped in black, and you got a couple of local artists to reimagine those silage bales and how they would call people to an arts festival or to a community diaspora gathering in Lenties or in Letterkenny would be amazing. Washing on a line, different sales. There's a whole pile of stuff like that that you can do. That is all part of the event program, but also part of turning the village on its head or the town on its head to celebrate the fact that the community moment of memory making has arrived. And again, engaging your own local and even diasporic creative personalities. So looking forward with my, what do you call it, magnifying glass or what do they call that? Fortune teller's glass, global ball, is it? Anyways, we're going to see a lot more of this summer. You know, the stage is going to come down to street level. This was first pioneered at the Cavan Fla, and that's 12 years ago. An actual sprung floor stage. This is a maneuverable piece of infrastructure built by the local TY students doing woodworking, and it's sprung, which means you can display dance on it. You can use as a performance space, and you can put couples or you can put dancing troupes on it, and the crowd can gather safely around it in small numbers, which will be very important to us. I love this. This came out of Berlin. The Berlin Bear is the moniker or the mascot of Berlin City, and the Berlin Tourist Authorities use it. And they've created around the city a number of frames where their little flagship bear is that people can sit and take the photograph for Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or WhatsApp, wherever they're going to put it. So what's the bear for Mount Charles or for Killybegs? I don't know what the bear is. You do, because you live there. And then can you frame your bear in a local setting that, as your audience, and this goes up pre-event, sends the message all around the world, you're building up a vibe and a bit of hype about the event taking place in Killybegs or Burton Port or wherever it might be. This is in Austin in Texas, but I've seen this being done in 2 festivals in this country, in Belfast and in Wexford. The men's shed, MED, these little cars that are being pulled by a trailer for kids out of throwaway stuff. Now, men's sheds are a phenomenal resource to every community. And if you put enough of creative ideas in front of them, they'll figure out a way to create this, to create these type of engaging activities for children or for all ages from throwaway recyclable goods and products that can be painted and would add to a street procession or a cavalcade. Again, note the wheels. A lot of what we'll be doing this year will be movable, will have to be movable. 5 lamps in Ranelagh. The cost of this event was, I think, 42 euros. Tops were pennies and the guitars were bought online. But they had a ukulele class for kids. What I liked about this in particular was that made front page news in the Irish Times and in the Sunday Business Post for the week before the festival, because they ran the classes in advance. And I think whatever we do with our community events for this season, we have to involve that next generation. And if you're really lucky, if circumstances allow and the vaccination scheme has done its work, it would be lovely to see photographs of the third age in there with those youngsters teaching to knit, to sew, to play, to bake, to cook, to dance, to lilt, whatever it might be, because that's what we're all missing. My friends in Waterford have been doing this program for the last 3 years called Waterford Walls. Every town has a gable end that could do with this. And I don't know why more of us don't involve in pre-community event painting or pre-community event taking, and it's not the function of the Tidy Towns Committee to do it. It's the function of the festival event or the community event, where you commission, and that's the phrase for it, a couple of artists who would like to do large-scale work, and you get volunteers to help actually paint along by numbers to create this sort of effect. You don't need, like Waterford, to do 36 of these buildings. 3 per village or per town might be enough a fortnight before your event. Take a look at the Ballina murals for Biden and for Jack Charlton. They're fabulous. They've got huge publicity for Ballina, and I think they cost about €300 each. But there's a little cooperative, a volunteer outdoor artists who are driving that project, and it's lovely. And they change the murals every three months in Ballina. You could do that as part of your community event, no bother at all. So have a look at that. Oh, my yarn's gone. They are. I had a lovely shot. I don't know where it's gone. Oops, sorry. I had a lovely shot of a yarn bomb of a set of trees going into Cambridge. I'll try and send it because there's some material coming alongside this as well. I'm just thinking, Donegal, with all the coastline and all the lovely beaches, I don't know of any sand sculpting competition that takes place up there. I don't know of any training of sand activity for you. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm not aware. Southeast, yes, there's lots of sand building, castles, sand sculpting, but there are artists who do this sort of stuff. And if you're stuck on where we get them, how we get funding for them, Create, CREATE, runs the Artists in Residence programme for the Arts Council. Creativity Ireland also runs programs that will allow community groups to engage with an artist for a couple of weeks, days or months to do training and outreach with different pockets of volunteers and people within your community who can lead to these type of outputs for a festival or event time. And that's my shot of the season. It's the Heart of the Glens Festival. There are two sisters, an aunt and the next generation who are all volunteering to be involved in their community event. And it is what community events are about, is the fact that all that generation, third, second, first, of the family get together and have a whale of a time. So I just want to signpost you in this slide to a couple of things I think that's important for you as you progress with your community events. The first is, if you're looking at doing events indoor in levels 3 through 1, the Theatre Forum, the bottom one here, Theatre Forum Assets uploads the Arts Centre and Venue Management during COVID. This has been updated every nearly 4 weeks, and it effectively shows you how to make safe an art centre and run it for artists and audiences and the technicians and crew. And it's something, whether you have a community centre, community hall, assembly hall, or a shopping centre, and you want to put people into it, this will be the Bible. So if you're going, well, how would we do that, and what do we look like, and what additional resources would we put in for sanitizing, black and yellow stickers, different queuing systems, different egress doors, 2 doors for egress, 1 for exit. No, how would we have a read of that, and it'll give you a flavor of what is going to be demanded of any organization that's going to attempt an indoor event in the next 12 months. The second thing that I would like you to take a look at is this whole sustainability issue and the greening of our festivals and the greening of our community events. Theatre Forum has started something which is nice, the Green Arts Initiative in Ireland for all arts practices, but it will encapsulate events, and community events will eventually move into this genre fully. So if you're making the leap with a new event or elements new to your community this year, you may as well do it from a sustainable point of way. And Julie's Bicycle, I mentioned them before. Julie's Bicycle, they are a huge online community of activists who are trying to get the event industry and event sector of the United Kingdom in particular to move to a less wasteful way of producing and consuming at events. And just take a look at the resource waste outdoor events guidelines as to how you can minimize the amount of detritus and rubbish that gets left behind. It's not when the people arrive. It's not when your audience turns up that process starts. It's before they leave the house to put stuff into their bag to get into their car. If they are going to drive, maybe they should walk or cycle. And then finally, if you want to know the way the wind is pointing as to sort of living post lockdown and post COVID, because Australia, certainly there's 4 states of Australia and all of New Zealand are now technically defined as a post-COVID territory. The Cricket Association of Australia produced one of the most definitive guides to running indoor and outdoor events in Australia. Now, it's 164 pages. It's only for those who really, really can't sleep at night, but it'll give you a fair flavour of some of the logistical challenges that will still remain with us as we progress from vaccination, social distancing, mask wearing to the other side, which will hopefully be going back to the new normal, whatever that is going to be. But it won't be just a repeat fully of the 2019 season. So that's, I think, John, yeah, at 10 to 4, a wrap up. What I'm sending you, by way of attachment, is the 100 score sheet, things we should be doing volunteers. It's a Word document, and I'm also sending you some two PDFs, just if you want to read some stuff in greater detail. Okay, so I'll hush up now, and I hope that was a lot to take in. Sorry, but hopefully it'll just cause you to think a little differently about making an event happen, about creating teams and creating new structures, processes, and production values for the events that we're going to have to try and put on in season 2021. Thank you, John.
Okay, that was fantastic, Colm. If you could stop sharing, it'll put everybody back to the main screen. They'll be able to see each other.
Okay, yeah. How do I do that?
Just down to screen share and select stop sharing.
Yeah. It was there a moment ago. Excellent. Sorry, my apologies. Okay.
Good. Colm, thank you very much. That was very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot more to event management than just turning up and making tea and telling people to park wherever they want and sit over there. It is, and I think that's probably a part that we don't all realize. And I know definitely for events that we would run as a volunteer centre, we kind of start thinking about it a week or two out and then figure it out as we go. Yeah, we don't maybe look at that longer term sort of schedule and plan. Very interesting, I suppose, the role of volunteers, and that's something that's we would definitely champion. It's kind of in the title for us, and it is, like you say, we go into all of those community venues as well, and there was a picture of somebody in a chain opening something, but there isn't a picture of the kids having fun, or the 15 people lined up or whatever it is. No, it is, and that's what makes a community. Definitely very interesting. And I suppose from our own perspective, GLDC and SciCap and the Volunteer Centre are available. Like if groups are struggling to access volunteers or to come up with supports or whatever the case may be, like we're there as a resource. And the fact that everybody's coming back to these sessions hopefully means that they realize that hopefully the value of that resource as we go forward. I suppose one thing just that caught my eye was the review afterwards, and celebrating the success. And that is something that we have very much struggled with within the Volunteer Centre. And we know that you move on to the next crisis as soon as something is kind of finished, and you're always, it's that squeaky wheel thing. And one way we have combated that now is every month when we report internally, or every 3 months when we report to our steering group, we have to come with good news. So we have to come with a story of something that went really well, or 10 stories or one story or whatever it is, but we have to come, and it's on our agenda to say, this is the good news section. It works in two ways. It helps us to gather that information, and it means we're thinking about it throughout the month, going, God, that would be good for the good news story. At the end of the year, we have 30 or 40 things that happened throughout the year that we had entirely forgotten about, but they're all kind of captured. And generally it's a Facebook post, or, we've caught something. It means when we're reporting to our funders, we're able to do that. And equally, at a general meeting of our steering group, or at a general meeting of any committee, if you finish your report with good news, it's really hard for people to give out to you afterwards. So, it helps at many levels. So yeah, look, it's a way of capturing that and having that story towards the end of the year, because to be honest, January, February 2020 feels like a decade ago, not a couple of months ago. So I think that's probably something that'll be with us for a while. But I'd like to throw it open to the group for comments or questions. So look, there's only the gang of us here, so unmute yourself and chat away.
Well, I think we got plenty of ideas there from Colm for groups to work with. And I was reminded of the TV programme At Your Service with John and Francis Brennan. They show very practical and simple ways, clear and concise ways that we may have missed because we're already in the woods and we can't see anything else. So just want to say well done, Colm, for delivering that clear and concise presentation.
There's a lot in it, and Colm mentioned in the chat there, there is 1 or 2 mentoring sessions. So if something sparked your attention today or something was of interest, come back to us to say, we'd like to talk more to Colm about that and see what is there. And particularly for the new year. I think that Colm said their event management is something that, is a 4-year degree, not a 1-hour Zoom call. So, there's probably stuff there that we could look at maybe expanding on into the new year to run additional sessions on. But if there's something across the 4 sessions that kind of caught your eye, or some other issue that you would like us to run a session on with Colm or with whoever, let us know and come back to us, and we'd be delighted to do it. So yeah, if anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions or giving out even, just unmute and come join us. I think you've tired it all out.
Getting away far too easy with this, Colm. If I'd known that, we'd have had created some difficult questions to ask you.
I suppose, well, I have one, just to I suppose kick it off. Around scheduling for summer, autumn 21, if people are planning an events calendar at the minute, Colm, what do you advise? Do you advise to push everything back as late as possible? Is it, grin and bear it and just get on with it and adjust to the circumstances? How do you advise people to do that for next year?
The advice that I'm offering at the moment to everybody is to prepare an event to prepare an event that is as micro as possible, and that then can be upscaled as circumstances allow. Do not prepare the macro event that has to be pulled back, because people have taken that abuse for one season. I, as a volunteer, don't want to be in that situation as a human being again. I'd rather be standing in Falcarra 4 weeks out from the community festival in August, knowing it's going to be bigger than what we had planned, because we're now in level 0, as opposed to we had planned for a normal Falcarra community August festival, and once again we now have to retreat to the online zone. So we're managing everyone's headspace here as well a little, both the volunteers and the teams and the key producers to these events. So I'd be saying the level 3 to level 1 sort of rule of thumb is it'll be 50 in an indoor, and you'll have 350 to maybe 500 max outside with some bells and attachments on it. So the higher the number you would have outside will be determined by the type of infrastructure you will have to separate a crowd. So it might mean, for instance, using your GAA or your soccer park or your rugby ground to actually have elements of the music carnival program in, because you can segregate a crowd safely in and out of the different stand areas, yeah, as opposed to only having 300 in the town square in Buncrana. So, and tragically, we won't really know what NEFIT and government and Fáilte Ireland advice in this space is going to be till around the May Bank holiday weekend. So, and again, the other reality, and I don't mean to be negative, is we've all had the financial Hiroshima of this year. No organization would really want to commit themselves to another Hiroshima. So if me and Rosemary and Eamon and Eugene there and Margaret are the directors of a community event in Letterkenny, and we have to decide by April to commit ourselves to 15,000 euros worth of artist fee, of staging costs, of lighting costs, of marketing costs with Highland Radio, contracts, and we have nothing to sandbag or to pay for those costs if the whole thing gets pulled, because not Donegal, but because the Letterkenny electoral area is gone to level 5 10 days before our event is happening. There is no insurance scheme commodity available. Abandonment, cancellation, it's not available. If it's to do with COVID or any pandemic, we're not getting our money back. So we would be trading recklessly to proceed down that path, to lay out all this money on the basis of people paying a £5 a ticket or a £10 ticket or 20 euros. It doesn't matter what the ticket price is. So we just all have to have a reality check about, where we are. My sense is that if the vaccination program is a success, and that's a big if now, because we have had hit and misses with vaccination programs through no fault of ours in the past, we could be in a situation where late August, September, you see significant gatherings of some shape or form again. But they will. You're not going to have the 3 generations and the children in the village square in Ballybuffet or the Diamond in Donegal until 2022, because the level of fear is there, and the sentiment amongst anyone who has somebody at home or a nursing home who may not be vaccinated or be worried about whether, God, if I go to this great Gareth Brooks tribute show that the soccer club are putting on here as a fundraiser, and I'm jumping up and down with 500 people that really should be 350, but there's 150 stewards. That game is going to be played by a variety of organizations in all of our settings. But I'll be questioning myself as an audience member, can I afford that risk in my domestic environment where my 16-year-old son who's an asthmatic, isn't on the vaccination list, won't get at least 22? Do I really want to bring him home that present? So we're not going to be in a normal situation for 2021 in any regard, you know? So I'm saying prepare that you can have 50 people indoor at an event and 350 in a stationary outdoor event. In other words, a crowd of some shape and size at 350 together. The larger crowd will be able to gather, but you'll have to have more infrastructure for them and more segregation. They won't be all able to come in the same road and go out the same road. So how many 100 stewards will you need to police that?
Thank you, Colm. Yeah, it's a lot to think about. And I think ultimately, look, none of us know, I suppose, is the answer to all of these questions. It depends. So no, look, unless anybody else has any thoughts or comments, we're going to wrap at that. We started in a minute.
I want to make one final comment, John.
Yeah.
All the funders are asking people and happily investing in new technology to allow you to beam your event into their homes. And I'm just saying, hang back a moment, think about two things. If we're into some level of lockdown restriction again from the Epiphany right through to Paddy's Day, where is my head going to be for looking at more content on screen? I don't think it's going to be in a good place. I think I'll be zoomed out of it by next March. So just because the grant is there to spend 10,000 on broadcasting live from Mongreanion or zooming behind a paywall for whatever's going to happen in the Falcarrick, doesn't necessarily mean that's what our audience will be able for. And if you go for a very complex and convoluted system, will you have the money internally to be able to use that system the following year if you need it as part of hopefully a lesser project again? So I would just caution about the assumption that we'll all want to receive our event content online beyond May next year. I don't think we will.
Okay.
Bon chance.
That's it.
Bon courage.
That's it. Right. Folks, thank you very much for joining us over the 4 sessions. We know the feedback we're getting from groups, the feedback we're getting from people at the mentor sessions is that it was a very worthwhile exercise. We would like to thank Colm for giving us time and joining us and spending the time probably reimagining beyond just the festival bits into the community events, maybe into the smaller scale events that we were interested in talking about. And look, we hope that we will be back with a new program ourselves in 2021. It won't be behind a paywall, but you will need to register. And look, we would love to be doing these sessions in person and having people gathered and maybe doing a hybrid of the two where we're Zooming some people and other people in person. But for now, I suppose we are on Zoom and that's where we'll be for the foreseeable. So look, we'll be back to you. Anybody who registered an expression of interest in this session will be told about the future sessions coming up and the work that we're doing. So look, keep us in mind if there's anything we can do to be of assistance. You have our contact details. Shoot us in an email, regardless of whether if it's about volunteers and you have Margaret's email, shoot it in, she'll pass it on. And likewise, if you have the volunteer centre, if SciCap can be of assistance into the new year, that's what we're there for. We're there to help make your lives easier, hopefully, and not and that's what we endeavour to do. Whether we achieve it or not all the time is a whole other thing. So look. Good Mila Maigov and Bannock na Shasher the League. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Okay.